Hey, okay, so we're back. Thing feels that's pretty dry. That's pretty dry as well. Paper's starting to buckle a little bit, but whatever. That's fine. Hey, Trip Design, what's going on? All right, so quick recap. Checking out how paint behaves on normal paper stock on this side versus a gessoed piece here. In terms of products, used Deco Art Premium White Gesso on this side. This is just plain, I think it's watercolor paper or mixed media paper. Can't remember the brand. For the red, I'm using, again, simple Deco Art acrylic paint in deep red. Probably use some white as well. This is also Deco Art, and just peel the sticker off. Brushes I'm using are Dealer Brownie. This is number 5 round. I used a flat brush earlier for the washes. No medium, anything like that. It's just red paint with water. Yeah, and the point of this is to see how what kind of difference does gesso really make. And this is the second part of the video because this is taking a lot longer than I thought. And we're gonna go in just kind of other quick recaps because I know some of the questions that came up. The initial drawing is right here on 8.5 by 11, just a sketch of the Flash from the Justice League poster. Took a picture of that, took it into Photoshop, scaled it down to 2.5 by 3.5, which is sketchcard size, what set to use here. Printed it out right there. Carbon transfer, go over the edges with ink or a pencil, and it'll just transfer over. So you can quickly see here how that works. See, lines transfer over. Quick, dirty trick, but it works. And yeah. So I did 2 washes on each one of these, or 3 washes. The initial base wash with the red, then I did in the darks and a little bit of the highlights, doing the same thing again, working left to right. And yeah, I'm not really using anything but the red. I'm gonna go into the white later to add the highlights. So far what I'm doing is just trying to build out some values in red, some form. And as everything's drying, the gesso side is drying a little bit darker on the darks. The lights are drying a lot lighter. So the initial wash here and here, you can see it's a lot more pigmented on the paper, lighter on the gesso part. Part of it, I think, has to do with the fact that when the paper is now treated, it's absorbing the water, so it's absorbing pigment as well. When it's gessoed, it's absorbing a lot less water, so you're just getting the pigment left over. And the other thing is that the gesso is white, so it does create a almost pure white surface, while the paper is not perfectly white. Even if I compare here, photocopier paper, say this is whiter than the original paper there. So the undervalue or the undertone is going to impact the way the colors react. So what I'm going to do now is just go back to the paper side and do another round of detail. Get the darks in there. Like I said, I'm just mixing water with the paint. So yeah, it's been very educational so far. And my conclusion so far is that things are better with gesso. So I'm definitely going to be using gessoed boards or just gesso my paper more going forward as I do pieces. Not so much on sketch cards or on, well, definitely on APs, but not on just the general set cards. I tend to spend way too long on the general sketch cards as it is. So to add an extra 20 minutes, half an hour per to gesso, let it dry, do a second coat, and sand them, I just don't think that that is reasonable. I like to think that I put my best foot forward every time I do a sketch card, regardless on whether it's an AP or a standard set card. But at the end of the day, I really do have to balance out the time investment to kind of what I get out of it. And generally my approach to sketch card sets is that it's exactly what it's called. It's a sketch. It's meant to act as an exercise, and I will focus more on learning from the experience, and try to apply that learning into commissioned work or commercial work, which I do occasionally. Not so much on the sketch. And when I get an AP, I try to really spend a lot of time on it and really build out the details and make sure that the buyer gets really something cool, something that they can appreciate, and hopefully, you know, justifies their investment. I don't do these for the money. I do these more for fun, for learning, and I mean, the money pays for the material, so that's great, but I don't think anybody's making a living off sketch cards. Not licensed sketch cards anyways, not sets. So yeah, there's my little rant there. So really what I'm doing now is I'm getting the darks stronger, just to really start building out some contrast. At the same time, try to get some better tonal separation between some of the shapes. If at any point anyone's got any questions, just shoot them out. Hopefully I'll see it and answer it. If I don't, just DM me. I respond to everyone, unless you're trying to sell me something, or you want me to sign up to some weird site where you can show me your nudie pictures, because honestly, ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah, I know about the focus thing. It's driving me nuts. That's why I did this dark spot here. But I'm on a Galaxy S5 and for the video, and I'm not sure why it's doing that. Oh, this isn't Captain America. It does look like Captain America. It's actually the Flash. And this is now, how far in are we? About an hour into it. I did the other video. I went live about 20 minutes ago, just finished that part, but I know the cutoff is an hour. So I stopped, let everything dry a little bit, and came back to finish this exercise. Ah, yeah, I can see the autofocus, and that's really frustrating. I'm really sorry. I don't know if there's a way to stop it from doing that. Yeah. Sorry, next time I do one of these, I'll try to, I'll use my proper phone, or at least see if I can change these settings, the autofocus, but I can imagine that that's really frustrating. Yeah, it totally does look like Captain America. Which... Hmm. Yeah, if anyone's got a tip or knows how to prevent the Galaxy camera from autofocusing all the time, I'd be greatly appreciated, because I can see how this is frustrating or annoying to watch. Okay, so mentioned on the first part of the video, because the paper, the untreated side, is really absorbing the water, it gets a little, you either have to work really wet or really fast, because as the paint gets absorbed, that air is no longer workable, because this is acrylic paint and acrylic doesn't reactivate. Maybe if I use some extender, but that kind of defeats the purpose of this exercise. It'll give me a little bit longer shelf life, if you will, or working time. But right now I'm kind of trying to work really quick to get these darker reds or stronger red values in, so I can block in this piece of the armor. But I think really what I should do, and yeah, it's, now that I'm thinking out loud, I'm gonna have to darken my red for the black areas, and I don't have any black, so I'm just gonna use some blue, make a nice purple, and that'll block it in. That should work. No, see, I'm not hating the way this looks. I'm working very wet like this, it works. I don't mind doing it, but it gives me see what happened there. I don't know if I can get rid of those brush strokes, or maybe I can because it's just wet enough, but I do end up struggling with the paint a little bit, trying to get an even coat, especially when I'm trying to do a gradient in the background here. I need to go darker on this end. Now, one cool thing about doing these side-by-side pieces, which I've never really done before, is this left piece here is kind of acting as my test ground. Even though, I mean, that's unintentional, and I mean, ultimately what I'm trying to figure out here is whether or not it's worthwhile for me to gesso everything, like all the surfaces, before I paint going forward. So I'm trying to get two pieces that are pretty close to each other so I can compare both from the way it turns out, as well as I completely forgot my train of thought. Yeah, totally forgot what I was talking about. So it's a little bit challenging sometimes to hold a proper conversation while working. But yeah, hopefully it'll come back to me. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna let this side dry. I'll try to do the same thing on the right. I just need to, running out of paint on my palette here, so just a couple more dabs of paint. So knowing that the gesso part takes a little longer to dry, and it's going to be a little lighter, I'm going to start doing this background piece. To get this dark, and I may actually need to go a little bit darker on the start. It's a little hard to tell in the video because you can't have a tactile feel for the way the paint actually feels, but it is a lot more fluid. So it feels like I can get a lot more out of one stroke or one fill of the brush. And because it's not drying as fast, I'm able to blend it better, or it gives me a little bit more time to blend it. I know it's really bugging me that I've completely forgot what I was gonna say there. Either way. Actually, see how dark this piece was, and I'm actually using more paint on the gesso piece and less water, but it's not getting as dark as quickly, so I need to use even more paint. But it's very important, yeah, and I kind of messed up here. Need to let the surface dry a little bit before going in with a second wash, because it's just not sticking to the surface that well, because it's not dry yet, so just kind of blending together and get the brush strokes, which, yeah, okay, I need to stop working that before I totally destroy it. Let's see if I can get back in here and darken this side. see, like right here, this is already dry. So as I go in with a second coat, it's really taking. I mentioned in the first half, it's a little bit challenging going between plain paper and gesso because you need to approach the brush strokes differently. So the way I'm applying paint here doesn't work the same on the gesso side. I can't say I'm loving having to kind of change my approach from side to side. Again, I'm overworking that area, so I need to just put the paint down and let it settle. Because otherwise I'm starting to end up with these brush strokes, which I'm not sure how I'm going to remedy. Maybe I need to use a bigger brush. I'm not sure. But I think I have no choice here. But I'm gonna need to go in with the purple to fix some of these strokes on this kind of messy area here. Some people like that. I'm not one of those people. So I'm gonna try to blend it out for now, and then I'm gonna have to be with a clean brush. I'm gonna need to darken this separately with the purple. So while I figured that out, thanks, Crystal. Thanks for joining as well. So while the background dries a little bit, let me try to darken out or flesh out some of these dark areas a little more. I'm waiting for time. Okay, so I've got plenty of time. Oh, thanks. I really appreciate that. I can't recall offhand if what your account is, but I'll definitely check it out after the video. Now, I think there's a bit of a lag between the video and the comments. So if you comment and I don't answer you right away, that's probably because I haven't seen it right away, or it takes a while till you actually hear my response. But yeah, I'm trying to keep an eye on the comments as they come in. Thanks, Crystal. I know I'm just learning here, trying to figure out things. As you can see, I don't know if you're watching the left side as it's drying, and it's almost fully dried. The color does fade. Not so much on the gesso piece. The color is a lot more saturated and more vibrant, which is, I think, as I talked about that at the beginning of the video, it's more, probably has to do with the fact that the paper is not absorbing most of the pigment, so it does dry out on the surface and leaves the pigment behind the way it should, while the paper is absorbing a lot of the, well, most of the water and in turn the pigment, so it's kind of getting dissolved into the paper surface. And this is all anecdotal, I don't know for sure. I don't really understand how gesso works, what the point is. To do this properly, I probably should have done a little bit of research, but not much. I just test things out and learn the hard way. Time, okay. Watercolor's fun. I struggle with it. This is acrylic paint. It's not watercolor, and it's actually very cheap, straightforward. Deco art, crafters acrylic. I do water it down, and I think my technique is more watercolor, traditional watercolor style. But I find the watercolor doesn't get opaque enough for me for kind of what I'm trying to achieve, and I tried using gouache, which is opaque, and you get some beautiful density there, but the issue with gouache is that it never really dries, and because it is like watercolor, you can actually reactivate it. So I know a lot of people, or some people, use gouache religiously and do some beautiful work, like Alex Ross. He does everything in gouache. I don't understand how he can get those layers without reactivating the colors underneath. I think I just need to practice with it more. But back to watercolor. Watercolor is great, and I love using watercolors, but I like to get a really really defined colors, which I find hard with watercolors. So I use acrylics, and so I don't use acrylics probably the way they're supposed to be used, but honestly I don't care, because they give me the results that I want. So eventually I'm sure I'll have an aha moment, either with watercolors or acrylic, and figure out how to use them properly. But until then, I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, because that's what I know. I'm getting too old to learn new tricks, so yeah. Time 29 minutes. So I really want to wrap up this study in this video, so I just need to get a bit of a battle plan as to what else I'm going to do in terms of detail. I think I definitely want to get with the white, get in with some white highlights to build out some of the contrast, but I really need to get some of these darks a lot darker, and this whole background area should be definitely darker, to really make the flash here stand out. So as I say, then I keep on going out the red. I'm gonna mix in a purple. Just quickly take a look, see if there's anything else here that I want to bring out in red. I just want to get some of these outlines in. I definitely don't want to put any purples on the skin portion, so on his face. So I want to make sure that I get that nicely defined in with the red. Okay, so we'll let that sit for a bit. Just gonna put that there so I don't mess it up. And I do need to build out a little bit more detail on this side because I've ignored the eyes. And someone mentioned before that the camera keeps on trying to adjust on the hand, on my hand, and I'm sorry about that. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about it midstream. Next time I do one of these, I'm gonna use a different camera, or at least figure out how to get this one to stop out of focusing on everything, because I can imagine it's really frustrating. And I'm really I really hope that the wash underneath the paper here is not getting destroyed as I mash my hand over it, because that would really suck for lack of better words. So right here on the shadow under the nose, when I blocked in the pencils, I did actually shade that in, and I really shouldn't have, or I shouldn't have done it as dark, because the gray of the graphite's actually coming through a little bit. Might be a little hard on the to tell in the video, but yeah, it is getting a little muddy, unfortunately. If I was using more than one color, I could just go over it, but the way I'm doing this, the only way I can really get rid of it is to go like 100% red in there, and that piece is just going to stand out way too much. I don't want that strong of a red anywhere, because it's just going to stand out too much. So I'm going to have to deal with it and learn from my mistake for next time. That is, don't fill in the shadows with pencil, or if you do, erase them. Got a little smudge there. I got 23 minutes to go. So what I'm gonna do here is, before I go on with before I go mix my purple, I'm just gonna outline these parts that I want to make sure I don't cover, so I'm sure I can see them. Other times I forget to draw the pupils in. Not sure what that's all about, but I end up with these wide eyes, which are very comic booky. But when doing a portrait, the eyes are very important. So, alright, let me just draw the eyes in quickly here on the gouache side, and that'll give the papers, not the gouache, the gesso side, and that'll also give the plain paper side a chance to dry a bit. I'm going to mix up the purple and fill in the background, and this could really end up being a mistake. We'll find out. Whoa, something very goofy there. All right, so for the purple, I'm gonna use Copenhagen blue. I don't think it's actually made in Copenhagen, and some deep red mixed together. Use that to sample it. So might as well, I guess, do that in view. So it's just a piece of glass. I find it's really easy to work on glass, plus once it dries, especially with acrylic, you just peel it off. So I do want my value to be primarily red, so I'm sure I get more red in here than blue. Yeah. And one of the worst things you can do is not mix enough paint, and this is not the way to mix acrylic paint, I know it, but it's not focusing on anything. No, I think the camera lost its mind. That should be better. So, yeah, this is nice. It's a nice cherry, dark cherry color that I want, and that's actually what I'm getting, so you can see there. I don't want to completely change the color profile of the piece. I just want to get darker. Just to give me some nice contrast. Yeah, man, I did not mix enough color. This happens to me all the time. And it's really not a big deal to mix colors. The problem is that, oh, that's pretty close, is that if you don't get the same, it's a little darker than original. If you don't get the same mixture, you're not going to get the same color. So you're trying to keep things consistent. Yeah, it makes it almost impossible because now you're working with different colors. But this is darker. The second versions, I do like this better. So it was a happy accident, as Bob Ross would. Pretty sure that was Bob Ross who said that. And another trick I learned is I'm doing backgrounds. Is do one side and work your way up to the other. That way, if the color's not perfect on both sides, it won't be as noticeable. So if I were to do the bottom and then do the top, and then the color's not as it's not exactly the same because I didn't mix enough, then you kind of get a straight edge where you can see the separation. This way, if the color is not the same, it's not exactly the same, there's something separating it, so you don't actually see it side by side. It's in the same tonal value, so it's generally the same, and it's a dark cherry color, and it'll be fine. Said before, I'm right-handed and I should work left to right, but I tend to wander. I have the attention span of a gnat, and yeah, I don't always do as I'm supposed to. There we go. So now this is really starting to get some nice contrast. Add some of this to the darkest areas, but not in any of the flesh tone areas, because there should be a separation between the mechanical pieces, in this case the armor, and the organic pieces, which is his skin. Mechanical pieces are, pieces are the armor, and organic pieces are his face and facial features. Trying to get a little bit more contrast here. Alright, so that's coming together well. Let that dry. Maybe add a little bit more here. And do the same thing on this side, which should be interesting. Now this time I'm going to mix more color. I know it's not going to be exactly the same as the plain paper side, but I want to make sure I have enough to do this in one pass and not have to go back, because as you saw before, you get some undesired results on the gesso if you have to go over it. So I'm just mixing off camera because it didn't like it when I was trying to mix it on camera before. It wouldn't focus properly. So there's my, ooh, that's a little dark. Let's add a little bit more red. There we go. So starting from the left this time, because that's what we're supposed to do since I'm right-handed. Hey, Starnerd. Yeah, it is a little bit Alex Ross stylish, and that's mainly because of the photo reference. Pretty sure that this is using the Justice League teaser poster or teaser one sheet as a reference, and this is the flash on it. I'm pretty sure that they try to mimic the Kingdom Come look from Alex Ross's work. With the strong key lighting and high contrast, which is why my test here is looking Alex Ross-ish. Again, I love Alex Ross's work, and he's one of my, or one of the artists, modern artists that I look to the most. Yeah, I didn't try to mimic his style. It just kind of happened that way because of the type of image I'm working with. But yeah, Alex Ross is the man. Talked about his work on other videos, but I can't understand how his process to get things painted that way. I know he's using gouache and does the washes, and again here I keep on doing this mistake on the chin area, as I really need to let this dry before I apply more paint, because I get this mess. This is why I ended up going with the purple in here in the first place, is because I totally messed that up, and unfortunately I just did the same thing again. And okay. I'm just gonna let that dry. Hopefully I can stop it, fix it. So while I let that mess dry, let me go in and get some of the darks and the armor, some of the true shadows in here. And doesn't look like I have enough time to finish this in this hour. I'm I'm not sure I'll be able to do another video today, which is really unfortunate because I really did want to get this done. But I have to get some highlights in here, otherwise it just won't come together the way I want it to. It's funny because I thought to myself, I can do one of these in about an hour, but I'm doing two of them here and talking at the same time, so not making a lot of sense all the time, and also trying to kind of learn what it's like to work with or on a gessoed surface. So yeah, I should have given myself either done something simpler in order to get it done that quick, or just planned better. But that's the beauty of learning. Hopefully next time I don't make the same mistake and give myself more time. Because otherwise this is going to end up like many pieces that I've started and never finished, or many studies that I've started and never finished and are sitting in a drawer somewhere at home. Which reminds me, there's two that I absolutely have to finish. Alright, let's see if this is dry enough. So what I'm going to do now, and hopefully this doesn't mess up everything, is I'm going to do a really thick wash. It's not really a wash, with very little water towards the darks and the chin, which hopefully will, yes, will get rid of those strokes that are lingering behind. If I'd stop going over the same surface, I wouldn't have this problem. But this is what I was alluding to earlier about working essentially in two mediums at the same time. I've got a little hair in there or something. The plain paper side, because it absorbs the paint differently, didn't have this issue. So it's a little bit more forgiving, in the sense that you could just, go really wet with a wet brush, go in there, lay down the paint, let it dry for a couple of minutes because it dries really quick, and then do another coat, or even work it in a little bit. With the gesso, because it's not absorbing as fast and it's not drying as quickly, I can't do that, and I really need to let the paint settle before I go in with a second wash. And because I don't learn, this is what's happening here, is I keep on going over when the paint's not fully dry or not dry enough, and essentially scrape into the surface of color with my brush. So this version, or this rendition of the flash on the gesso, is going to be a lot darker, or have some areas that are a lot darker than the other version, because I had to go over it so many times. Not the worst thing in the world, because pretty happy with the way they both look, but the point of this exercise is try to mimic the same process on both sides. See, a lot more contrast here, which outside of this textured area here that is driving me nuts. And it seems that, yeah, I'm just making it worse now. Yeah, I do like this look better. I think it's called low key. It's higher contrast. Try to get a little darker here. Okay, so I think what we need to do now is let this sit for another 10 minutes or so, and come in with the whites. I'm gonna move some things around, so I'll definitely come back for part 3 in about 15 minutes, and hopefully get her done. Thanks for everyone who joined, and we'll see you again real soon.